What's your assessment of the team?
I just think we're struggling a little bit to kind of find an identity. On paper, we're essentially the same team we were last year. But I think sometimes just removing one influential person can get a team that's, it changes the chemistry a little bit, and you've got to kind of find that identity again. And I think, I just kind of think that's where we are, because we don't see anything that alarms us when we're in training. And so I've been with teams that have lost 4 or 5 meets in a row and come back and won a national championship. So it's important that everybody knows that the sky's not falling just because we have a couple of bad outings and lose to some pretty good teams. I mean, Auburn's a pretty good team, and Kentucky was a national qualifier last year. These aren't teams that aren't good. It's just we've just got to be able to get on the right footing mentally, I think, and in our approach when we get in those situations, so that we don't allow them to snowball. And I think that's really what happened, was that we just never really got them we couldn't snap back after what happened on bars and until we got to Beam and the meet was over at that point. So
I think for you guys it's a challenge, because most of your consumers probably don't know the product well enough to know,
right,
is this good or is this bad? They just see the end result.
Right. Yeah.
As you said, everybody thinks, oh God.
Yeah. I mean, look, we believe this is a team that is capable of competing for the national title. This is not a team that is a fall off from the teams we've had in the last 3 or 4 years. This is from a personnel standpoint. We're a very good team, and our depth has been tested a little bit, but we're going to get some of those injuries back here in the next week or so, and we just got to kind of set our jaw a little bit, and sometimes these experiences are exactly what causes that to happen. So I'm optimistic. I feel good about this team and what the potential is for the remainder of the year and into the postseason. I look around what's going on around the country, and there's not a team out there that intimidates us. So I understand how it can appear on the outside, just because of how easily things have gone for the last several years, particularly in the regular season. But if we have to go through a couple of tribulations right now in order to get what we want at the end, I think everybody's going to be much happier at the end of the day.
Y'all have any? You got 2 meets this weekend. Any hope to get Sammy in at least one of them? Or
I would say that's a possibility. I'm not. I don't think that's something we're going to force right now. But I think today she'll start swinging again, and that'll progress. We'll see how everything is tolerated. We'll progress as we go. We get to St. Louis. We may try to test her at least in the warm-ups or in the practice day when we get there. My guess is that if she participates at all this week, it would be on Sunday.
What is the biggest hurdle preparing for 2 meets in 1 week?
I think a lot is made of that. It's something that we do intentionally every year. We try to find one weekend where we can do a double weekend. It serves a lot of purposes. This particular one gets us on a podium, which we like to do once at least before we get into the postseason. But being that it's a 2-day format at nationals, it always has been, and now going to the regional deal where it kind of gets us into that mindset as well. It just challenges them, and from a mental standpoint. My experience has been that a lot of times people think that it's a big deal, and the second one's going to be tough, and the second one usually ends up being the better of the two. So it's just it's something that we do intentionally. It also helps us because with our fan base growing the way it is, we try to have 6 home meets every year, and rather than 5, and from a scheduling standpoint, that's a priority of ours, is to have 6 opportunities at home every year. And so in order to do that, we've got to double up one weekend. And so I don't think it's that big a deal. It really isn't. I mean, if they weren't competing, they'd be practicing. So you can look at it as it's almost like another training day in some ways from that standpoint.
Similarly, I asked McKenna about Ruby, just kind of the difference. I mean, I see her on her bar
Yeah.
routines, and just to be able to provide and vault like she is.
Yeah, I mean, Ruby, freshman transition is hard for every kid. And to come from Europe and come to South Louisiana is culture shock, and so it took her a while to kind of figure this whole college athletics thing out. Like, they don't even have universities. It's not a big deal over there. They don't have football and basketball programs that compete against universities. And so it's sort of a foreign entity to them. They don't really understand the spirit of it all and where it all comes from. And so that takes some time. We've had kids in the past that came from Canada and other places where the same kind of dynamic exists. And so I just think more than anything, she's matured, she's happy, she's figured it out, how to work within the confines of NCAA limitations on hours and all of those things, and she's figured out how to get in shape and be in a really good place, and she's become much more vocal as a leader. I mean, she's 22 years old. She's not your typical junior, and so there's a lot of maturity to Ruby and a lot of great experience that we're able to draw on, and I think the results that she's getting is just an extension of where she is as a person right now at LSU, and being happy and comfortable and content with what's going on in her life. And I think that's just sort of manifesting itself in what she's doing in the gym.
Is there a bunch of nervous energy there? Like the release.
In her?
Yeah, the release at the end of her routines always seems to be more so than maybe most girls.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's nervous energy, but Ruby is very understated when it comes to talking about the athlete that she is or the accomplishments that she has. She's not one that likes to draw a lot of attention to herself, and so she almost looks surprised when she does well, you know, and I think that's what you see on her face, is that, like, wow, I know that was good and I did it, you know, and that doesn't seem to go away from her. You see that in little kids a lot, but you don't typically see that in a 22-year-old Olympian, two-time Olympian at that. So there's a genuineness and an exuberance and just an honest sort of innocence about what she does, and she works very hard. But I don't think she, I don't think she thinks of herself in the way a lot of us do.
How about Ashlyn Herbie?
She'll start swinging again today too, and that's going to be a big thing that we'll see. Hopefully over the next couple of weeks. The next couple of weeks will really determine whether or not she gets any opportunity to compete at all, because she's been out, and she's the kind of kid that needs a few meets to get under her belt to kind of get comfortable. And we're getting to a place where I can't speak for everybody, but I'm not one that likes to mix up lineups when you get to the back third of the season. I like to kind of get them set and go from there. So our hope that at the beginning of this year was that she would be the one that was in there in Maya's bar routine, in that spot. And when that didn't happen because of the elbow and then because of the knee, it's hard to see how that's going to pan out. But I'm excited. I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll be able to get her going and maybe at least see her on bars by the end of the season.
And this week, Friday, you'll see Utah there. That'll be one of the best
Yeah.
games there. Kind of maybe a little bit of a measuring stick, or somebody you'll see again in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, we
You don't
know.
wanna think about
I mean, Utah's got a great program, full of tradition, and they're there every year. They're always competing for the same things that we're trying to do, and it's good to see them. I mean, we see a lot of the top teams in our conference, obviously, but to get outside of our conference and see a team of that caliber is great. I don't know what I certainly believe that we can compete with them and anybody on any given day. It's just they've been very consistent so far. They haven't really, blown one up and done anything amazing, but they've been incredibly consistent, scoring in those low 197s, and so we've certainly seen that we have the potential to do that and more already. So I think it'll be a good meet. I think it's something that when you get on the floor with those types of teams, it gets a team's attention a little bit. If you look at what we've done, we've sort of risen against Florida and Alabama, and then the Kentucky and Auburn, we sort of, I don't know whether the team just mentally was not 100% convinced that they were going to get pushed or what, but we've got to stop that pattern. We've got to compete against everybody in the country every time we set foot on the floor, and I think that's beginning to resonate now.
Do you think the girls are too reliant on Finnegan cleaning everything up?
I don't think they are. I don't know that anybody consciously is reliant on Finnegan, but I think it's a point well taken that no team can rely on the same person to snatch them out of the fire all the time, and fortunately for us, I mean, she's on our team and has done amazing things. What I would hope that they do is that they look at her and try to pattern her approach and as to what they're doing and try to emulate more of what Sarah has represented for us so far. I don't think anybody is saying, oh, you know, we need to relax and because Finnegan's got us. You know, I don't think anybody thinks that way. But I do think that she's borne the brunt of having to perform in tight spots more than she ought to. I'd like for that kid to be free of mind at every time she goes, and let's maximize her scoring potential because she is human and she does feel it. You know, when people make mistakes ahead of her in a lineup, that puts a little bit of heat on her. And you know, we get into championship meets and those kinds of things, and she's sixth up, then we're going to need her to be as relaxed as possible, and that's their responsibility to put her in a position to do that.
She's on a pace, you know, hopefully stays healthy, to finish like in the top 5 in career wins at LSU.
Yeah.
And make her one of the best gymnasts. I mean, you've been
Yeah.
here a while now. Just, you know, she ranks pretty well up there, I would imagine,
Yeah.
with the gymnasts y'all have had.
Yeah, you know, she didn't do the all-around much as a freshman, but in my mind and in my coaching experience over the years, this is my 29th season, there's not been a better one from a mental approach and a steadiness of emotion and the way she conducts herself and the character of the human being and the way she goes about her business. There's never been a better one. I mean, I wish we had a little more time with her because she's a pretty amazing person. Really doesn't probably get the credit she deserves. She's getting a lot of attention now, but she doesn't really crave that, and she's very kind of quiet and unassuming about what she does. But there's not been a better one in my career.
You know, Dee Dee always says consistency wins, and, you know, how do you bring about that, getting more consistent through this stretch?
Well, I mean, we see consistency in the gym, so that's why I'm saying we don't see things that alarm us in practice. At some point it's going to translate. It's not about what we're doing physically. It's more about where are they mentally. Are they bought in to the message and to those things? And if they are, those things are going to take care of themselves. Consistency wins, yes, but that doesn't necessarily. That's an all-encompassing statement. That's not just the part that the public sees, and it has more to do with what we do on a day-to-day basis, right down to our conditioning and our meetings and everything. The message has to be consistent. The approach has to be consistent, and we see that in the gym. Look, I'm a fan of this team. This is a great team, and what people have to realize is that getting to the postseason and being successful can look 100 different ways, particularly in our sport where wins and losses don't really add up to a whole lot. I mean, we've run through a season where we beat everybody and gone undefeated 3 or 4 years in a row, and that becomes the norm and that becomes the expectation. But I've also seen a UCLA team that won 2 regular meets all year long and then went on to win a national title. Now, I certainly don't want to take that path, and we certainly don't want to go down that road because wins and losses matter to your fan base, and they matter to us. I mean, we ask them all the time, would you rather have the big score or would you rather have the win? And the answer unequivocally is we want to win. I mean, that's why we do this. But at the same time, we don't want to knee-jerk react and act as though there's some big emergency because we've lost a couple of meets within our conference, which is the toughest conference in the country. We're going to be fine. And these kids, we've got great kids on this team. We've got great character kids. And the gymnastics is not new to them. This is not a new team. These are kids that have done it and done it repeatedly for this team and done it all their lives. And so we believe in what they're doing, and we think we're going to be fine.
When wins and losses kind of don't really matter in gymnastics like they do in other sports, you know, how do you communicate that to the team?
Well, that's why we were glad when they added the regular season championship, because within the SEC, the wins and losses matter. You know, it matters for something now. You get to claim a championship if you win that part. So, but we talk to them daily about the fact that every time we set foot on the floor, we're competing against every team in the country. It's not just about the team that's on the floor with you, because the way that we're viewed and the perception that is created by what you do is based on scoring. It's based on a bottom line, a score, and a lot of that is things we can't control. But that's the kinds of things we talk about. We talk about maintaining a level of intensity that is indicative of what you would plan to do if you were at a championship meet, and that's really the way we go about it.